Chapter 3, Video 2. We're going to talk about the phases of wound healing now. And guys, this is very important that you know and understand the phases of wound healing because you're going to be asked different questions about this. First, we're going to talk about the inflammatory phase. The inflammatory phase begins immediately. It starts at the time that the injury occurs or whatever happens. During this phase, the first priority is to stop the wound from bleeding, okay? So with the inflammatory phase, our first priority is to stop this wound from bleeding. But blood vessels at the site, they start to constrict and narrow, and then the platelets start to stick together, and they start to form a plug over the site or an injury. As soon as the clot has formed, as soon as the clot is formed to stop the blood vessel, to stop the bleeding, these vessels start to dilate to allow blood to come into that injured area. So we have that clot that forms. Those vessels are constricted to stop that blood. But once that clot forms and that bleeding actually stops, the body recognizes that, and then those vessels dilate, and it allows that blood to come in for healing. Blood carries oxygen, nutrients, and white blood cells to the injured area. And the white blood cells, their purpose is to clean the area. They surround the pathogens and they begin to eat those pathogens and the bacteria that's in there by a process that we call phagocytosis. It's phagocytosis. So phagocytosis is when those white blood cells start attacking that bacteria or whatever microbes is in there, and they start encapsulating them and eating those to clean that wound up. During this stage, during the inflammatory stage, we have a red, swollen, and injured area. The skin may be warm to the touch, and it may be very, very painful. So just remember, red, swollen, warm to the touch, complaints of pain. These are all signs of the inflammatory phase. Now we're going to talk about the proliferative phase. The proliferative phase begins 2 to 3 days after the injury has occurred, and it can last anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks in uncomplicated wounds, okay? Complicated wounds may stay in proliferative phase much longer. Proliferative means growing rapidly. In the proliferative phase, the body begins to replace the damaged tissue. So we see this granulation tissue. Granulation tissue is a thin layer of new tissue, and it may be red and bumpy in appearance, and it's very fragile, and it has new blood vessels coming into it, so it may bleed easily. And then we have collagen. Collagen starts to pull the edges of the wound together to form scar tissue to fill any gap. Scar tissue is weaker than normal tissue. It's not able to function the way normal tissue does. So scar tissue that replaces skin, it lacks blood vessels, hair follicles, sweat glands, and melanin. It does not bleed, it don't grow hair, it don't sweat, it don't tan. So just know that. And then we're going to talk about the remodeling phase. The remodeling phase, this is the final stage of healing in which collagen is secreted and the wound is strengthened. This phase can last as long as 6 months. Again, it's the final stage. It can last up to 6 months. But more collagen is secreted to strengthen that wound. At the same time, collagen in the scar is broken down. This process causes a raised scar to shrink and flatten. Now we're going to talk about, we've talked about the phases of wound healing. Now we're going to talk about the 3 types of wound healing. We have 3 different types of wound healing. We have first intention wound healing, we have second intention wound healing, and we have third intention wound healing. With first intention wound healing, An open wound is closed surgically with sutures or staples as soon as possible. So it's stapled or sutured back together. A second intention wound healing, it can take a long time and it can be a higher risk for infection, and we often have a large scar with this. A wound is kept clean but otherwise left alone to let the tissue repair, allowing the wound to close on its own. So we don't do anything with second intention. It's closing on its own, but there are risks associated with that. And then we have third intention wound healing, where the wound is left open for a period of time to make sure there's no infection that's going to occur, and then it's going to be surgically closed with sutures or staples. With third intention wound healing, we often change these dressings 3 to 4 times a day, and we use that sterile technique, and then of course, it'll be closed surgically. Factors that affect wound healing: nutrition, hydration, overall health status, age, wound condition. All of these are to take into consideration. Do they have any comorbidities? Wound healing increases the body's need for blank and blank. The answer to this question is going to be calories and protein, okay? Calories and protein are essential to good wound healing. So we need to teach these guys, we need to teach these folks that have a wound or have issues healing that, increase your calories, increase your protein, because these are going to help you. This is going to help those wounds heal and repair. Complications of wound healing can be infection, hemorrhage, hematoma, dehiscence, and evisceration. The difference in, we're gonna go through, and I'm gonna talk with you about each one of these. With infection, the signs and symptoms of infection can be an elevated temperature greater than 100.5. We may see the patient has an increased pulse rate. They may have an increased respiratory rate. They may have drainage that is thick and yellow. So this is what it looks like when something gets infected. You can see where this is raising up and it looks yucky. Infections happen when pathogens enter into the wound. They increase hospital stays. Sometimes infections they're contracted at the hospital, while other times they just have an infection and they end up going. But the bottom line is they have an increased hospital stay when we have something that's infected. And pus, P-U-S, is a thick yellow fluid. And purulent, P-U-R-U-L-E-N-T, this is a drainage that contains pus. And with this infection, this area can be hot to touch. And infection usually appears 2 to 7 days after surgery. Now we're going to talk about hemorrhaging. Hemorrhaging is when we can't control the bleeding and a person is bleeding out. They have some medications increase the risk of bleeding, especially your anticoagulant medications, your Coumadin, your Eliquis, those type medications that thin the blood down. They place you at increased risk for hemorrhage. So if you're cut, you may have a problem. You may have a problem controlling the bleed. If you look at this picture here, you'll see they're putting a mark around this this bloody spot, and the reason they're doing that is because they don't want to take that dressing off because they think they have it stable, but they want to watch what the bleeding's doing. So they're circling that mark of blood, and they're going to come back to it and watch it and see if that is spreading, and that would indicate more bleeding. Now we're going to talk about dehiscence and evisceration. Okay, know the difference between these two. You will see questions on this. Dehiscence is when the wound bed actually pops open. Evisceration is when it pops open, it dehisces, and then those organs come out. If this happens, if you see evisceration, if this happens, if either one of these happens, it's your priority to let the doctor know. But if this happens, before you call that doctor, take a damp, sterile saline cloth and lay over this, because you want to keep those intestines or that organ moist, okay? You often see these two happen in incision lines, and especially in obese people. Blood collected under the skin is known as the answer to this is a hematoma. A hematoma is better known as a bruise. That's going to be it for Chapter 3, Video 2. But I will be back for the remainder of the chapter.